Throw me off. We cannot start the stream like that.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Start the video like that.
I think it's a perfect way to start. Just breaks the ice. It's just me like that with the crazy eyes.
All right. Whatever. I'm going for it. How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the Johnny Arnett channel. This is a pre-recorded podcast type video. We want to be doing this sort of thing more often. This right over here is Russell. This is my editor for the channel, and he runs the Apex Greatness podcast, who I've done streams with before. I will do more streams with them in the future. Super fun channel, and they love basketball history as much as I do. And so I recently hired him to be my editor, so that's why you're getting daily videos now. I do the writing, he does the editing, and I think we make a decent team. So we made a video about Damian Lillard, but we were so freaking excited and buzzed about it that we wanted to just talk about it more. So we're like, how about for the day after the Lillard video, let's just have a big podcast type discussion.
Literally last night in the middle of the night, I texted Johnny out of complete excitement and said, oh my God, I have a million ideas still about this trade, because we wanted to try and do this live, but it was my last day of my day job. So I had to do that, but we're here doing it now. And I'm really excited because like there's a lot of things to get into.
There's so many different talking points, dude, and it was awesome. I was happy to see everybody in the comments just chatting about it, and some people thought I was awful with some of my takes. We're going to talk about those too, but no, that's so anyway. Introduce yourself a little bit, Russell. Say how you're liking being a part of the channel right now, how you enjoy people criticizing your editing style.
Oh, man.
I'm just kidding. No, most people are loving it.
Fortunately, most of the bumps and bruises I took was on Apex. If you go back to the beginning of Apex, oh, man, comment section is ruthless. Oh, yeah. My goodness. But what do you call it? No, as he said, I am Russell. This is me. Dude, this has been so much fun. Like being a part of this. I was a fan of your channel before I even met you. Like before the pandemic, I probably found your channel. I wish you could go back and find exactly when, because now I want to know when exactly I subscribed to the channel. Sure. Because it's like, if you would have told me then that I would be in this position now, I don't think I would have believed you. And all the credit to you, my friend. I really appreciate literally everything even before this, everything you've done for me and my channel. And me personally, like, I really appreciate this. But stuff like when at 2:30 in the afternoon, one of the NBA 75 greatest players gets traded to one of my favorite players. And like, I'm not a teams guy, I'm a players guy. And Giannis has been my favorite player. If you've watched my podcast, you'd know Giannis has been my favorite player for a long time. To have this happen and to be able to then instantly go and like make a video on it is like very fulfilling and satisfying and very cool. And I'm super happy that people have been into what I've been doing and what we've been doing. Sure. And I'm looking forward to doing stuff like this. This is more my forte, honestly. Like, this is more where I have developed more experience. So like, this is the part that's super fun for me. I'm really excited to do this all season. This is an opportunity that I really haven't had before. So like,
sure.
I don't know. Thank you, brother. I say all this to say thank you very much, my friend. And thank you all out there for watching.
On the Apex Greatness podcast, that's what they do. They do pre-recorded videos, long podcast type format. And I mean, you guys break stuff down. Some of the hypothetical scenarios that you guys come up with is like truly incredible. And so the comparison teams and that sort of thing. So I'm excited to do more of this with you. We're going to do something similar. We're going to have your co-host Dario on here when the Greatest Teams series wraps up. Oh, yeah. You know, I'm making the greatest version of each team. For those of you who haven't seen it, I've already done the Philadelphia 76ers. And I wasn't sure if I was going to continue that series. I actually didn't get too many views on it, so I thought if it didn't do too well, I wouldn't. But there were so many people in the chat that were like, please, I love this series. Please continue it. So I'm going to continue it. We've got 3 straight days of Bucks videos, basically. Damian Lillard discussion, and then the all-time Bucks team, because alphabetical order, that's what's next.
People are gonna be
all bucked out. Yeah. No, it'll be good. I'm looking forward to making that team. And no, Damian Lillard will not be in there yet, but that's all right. We'll be good at the guards. So let's get started with this discussion. I know you put together a bunch of notes. I mean, we've got so much to unpack. So this big trade
Yeah.
Damian Lillard joining Chris Middleton and Giannis, forming what a lot of people would consider a big three.
Yeah.
So where do you want to tackle that first?
So, okay. So we can get into that part of it. We can get into the Bucks stuff first because it's stuff we kind of already talked about, and it's stuff I'd like to extrapolate on. Okay. So if I had to pick one of 5 players in the NBA, regardless of salary cap, regardless of anything like that, I think Dame would have been one of the 5 because I would have said, you know, like a guard who can do things that Giannis is specifically not great at, which is shooting and clutch buckets. And honestly, I think I would have picked Dame before Steph, specifically when it comes to the clutch gene. Steph is clutch. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure people are hearing that and losing their mind. But Steph is clutch. But Dame is another level of clutch. Dame is like, when you're watching Dame, you're like, okay, I really hope he gets the ball. And then like, there's no way he's gonna not help Giannis and the Bucks in closing situations. And I think that's where he's gonna bring the biggest upside, because now you don't have to worry about Giannis potentially at the free throw line at the end of a game. Yes, Chris Middleton has a high free throw percentage for his career, but I would still rather have Dame Lillard with the ball in his hands in crunch time over basically anybody in the league. Like, yeah,
there's just so many. Like, Giannis is already so accustomed to setting screens for his shooters. Yeah, now he's setting screens for Damian Lillard. Like that pick and roll, all those pick and pop opportunities with the various shooters that they have. Yeah. Oh man, it's gonna be nice. And like that, he loves to drive and kick. You know, that's Giannis's thing. Like if they collapse on him, now he's kicking it out to Damian Lillard. And I thought for the longest time, like, some people will say like Jimmy Butler or other players are the most clutch player in the league. For me, it was always Dame. Right. He doesn't have the playoff opportunities that a lot of guys have because he doesn't have those superstars to ride along with. Right. So now he does. And I was saying, I made a video, you know, like a month or 2 ago saying that I think Damian Lillard, if he stayed with Portland, he was going to be one of those players that years from now was going to be forgotten. Like an Alex English.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, back in the day and that sort of thing. This is what he needed. He just needed the right situation with a championship opportunity. And I like this team so much, I'm already considering them favorites, to be honest. Because like 100%. Okay. 100%. I think this team is going to win the championship. I said on my Twitter, I said, congratulations to the 2024 Milwaukee Bucks for winning the championship. The only other time I did that prior to the NBA season starting was in 2016 when Kevin Durant joined the Warriors. I said, congratulations to the 2017 Warriors for winning the championship, and that's exactly what happened. Yeah, I really, really think that this team is just going to mesh together well. They're going to blend together well. And Giannis has never had a guy like this, dude. He's already won a championship, but Chris Middleton is not Damian Lillard. And he still got him. Right. And so, oh man, this is going to be tough. I don't know how you defend them. I think the East is in for a rude awakening, and I think they're going to win a lot of regular season games too.
So here's my thing about the regular season specifically. With the regular season, if they still had Budenholzer, I think they're a shoo-in for 65 wins. Like, no doubt about it. His system with this whole setup. But don't you think maybe that team has kind of learned to maybe pull it back a little bit in the regular season? That's the era we're in, unfortunately. Like, we're in the era. Let's pull it back a little bit in the regular season. Let's not go for 65 so we can get 16 in the playoffs.
Well, you have to remember, like, a lot of times when teams come together, there's two things at play. Is one, they're just buzzed and excited to play together. So I think the energy on that team is going to be excited to work together. It might take some time for it to click. I mean, immediately what comes to mind is the 2010 to 2011 Miami Heat.
Sure.
And they started that year, what was it, like 8-6, 8-7, something like that.
I remember them losing to Philly when Philly was like tanking hard.
Yeah. And then like 7 games later, they go on to win, I believe it was 21 out of the next 22 games.
Sure.
You know, so it just takes some time for these teams to start clicking. I would argue that if Damian Lillard's your point guard, you're kind of going to build your system off of Damian Lillard, you know?
Over Giannis in that situation.
I just think that he's going to be the main I think Lillard's going to be the guy bringing the ball up the court and controlling the pace. And so,
yeah, probably,
right.
But I think Giannis will get his opportunities to do that as well. There's no way he won't. I'd be shocked.
We'll see.
That's kind of what that's what makes him special, is the ability to take the ball all the way up the court and either attack the basket or, you know, to be able to play that weird point center, forward, whatever you call them, role.
Yeah. Which I did see some people bringing up some interesting points in the comments of that Damian Lillard video we just did, is that it'll be interesting to see how these two stars work along together, because they kind of have a different preference and pace to the game. You know, Lillard really likes to slow things down, really likes to have a slow, methodical, you know, half court, you know, pace to the offense, while Giannis likes to push things a little bit. We have seen that work before. I mean, that's one of the things I've brought up a lot of times of the Showtime Lakers. Magic Johnson wanted to push. But when they had to slow things down and run things to the post, that's when you get your Kareem skyhooks. And so I think they can do it, but it might take them, you know, the first quarter, the first third of the season to really figure things out. But after that, this team's going to be so scary, dude.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing about the pace. When you say a slower pace in today's NBA, I was just looking at it, like some of the Trailblazers seasons, it's like 98 to 100. Like, it's not like, you know, 90 slow, or like we're still, I don't think it's going to be as big of an adjustment as maybe it would have been in a previous era. But I think he'll be able to manage that pretty well. I don't think the pace is going to be as big of a factor as people are.
I just want to see Giannis's facial expression the first time his point guard pulls up from 40 feet for like no reason other than he wanted to. Is he going to be okay with this? I mean, the adjustment to these guys playing together. I mean, 230 points per game scores, you know, coming together where, like I said, one guy just dropped, you know, a couple years ago, 50 points, had some like 16, 18 rebounds, something like that in the championship clinching game.
Oh yeah,
and a few months ago,
the 50-piece nugget.
And then just
video.
A few months ago, Damian Lillard casually dropped 71. Like, dude, this is. I don't know if you agree with that statement. I said in the video, since Shaq and Kobe, I think offensively, this is the most Shaq and Kobe vibes I've had with the inside-outside presence since then. You know,
I'll be honest. I'll be very honest, because you came on our show right after the Harden and Embiid trade.
Yep.
And I got those vibes from that trade, whether I'm right or wrong.
Sure.
Clearly, but I definitely got Shaq and Kobe vibes from their play styles and what like a evolutionary Shaq and Kobe vibe.
Yeah.
But with this, I think this is going to be something that maybe we haven't really seen.
Sure.
Like, because Giannis is a lot like Shaq, but he's like Orlando Shaq. It's a different kind of guy. Like, he's a different. Sure. It's a more athletic. It's not to mention the level of effort, and you're never gonna have to worry about Giannis not playing 100%. And the same thing could be said for Damian Lillard. I think that part of it is going to be really interesting. Two guys that are going to that are just assassins and are cold-blooded. Do you think 30 points a game on the same team is sustainable with these guys?
No.
Or do you think it's naturally going to be a drop-off?
No, like maybe 27, 28. Okay. You know, maybe one guy. I think Giannis is probably the guy who's going to have his offense affected a little bit more. I could see Giannis averaging 25, 26 points next year. And I'm excited to see Damian Lillard having just single man coverage all the time.
True.
You know, because he's going to have better looks that he's going to be begging to shoot the ball, you know?
Right.
So, but I think they'll both drop a little bit, but because of their differing styles, it's not so conflicting to where it's going to eat into one guy's production so much. It's not like you're talking about Russell Westbrook and LeBron James trying to make it work where they're both ball dominant players, so they almost can't even coexist. Like Giannis and Lillard are two very different players. And so
the thing you were saying about him getting open looks, I don't even think it's going to be that. What I think it's going to be is that pick and roll game between not just Giannis, but Brook Lopez and if you have, let's just take Giannis. If you take Giannis, right? What are you going to do on that pick and roll? You can't really play back because now you got Lillard who's shooting it from 35, right?
Right.
And if you bring the pressure in and you do the Steph Curry defense, now Giannis is like, you know what I mean? And I felt the same way about Curry and Kevin Durant with their pick and roll game. And honestly, the weird thing about that was they never really went to it as much as you would have expected. Sure. Like everybody thought that was going to be the thing, all playoffs, and they didn't go to it as much as everybody thought. So I'm interested to see how this offense meshes together under the new coaching.
Sure.
Because this is, what's this guy's name? Adrian Griffin, right? He has coached, he's been an assistant coach his whole career. So it's a new head coaching situation.
It's a crapshoot, dude. Like at this point,
that's what I'm saying.
We have to see what he can do. I mean, a lot of coaches have had amazing starts, you know, with really stacked rosters. This could be what brings, you know, attention to him. But yeah, at this point, anybody predicting on how he's going to do, I think is just wants to sound like they know what they're talking about, and they don't really.
I think that's and I think that's a huge factor as to whether they win the East or not.
Sure.
Because if that guy's just like Budenholzer and doesn't change his game plan ever for any reason, then, you know, it's going to be the same problem.
Sure.
Like the worst thing that could have happened to the Bucks. This is going to sound crazy, but I've said this before. One of the worst things that could have happened to the Bucks was them getting that championship in 2021 because it allowed Mike Budenholzer to stay way longer than he should have stayed. Outside of that 1 year, he has had countless playoff failures and blunders that you can directly point to coaching, like it's a coaching fault.
Sure.
And as somebody who was rooting for Giannis a lot, like watching the lack of adjustments, especially against a team like Boston, where, you know, Brad Stevens and then Ime Udoka were like just constantly making adjustments. And, you know, I just hope that Adrian Griffin can get that part of it down. Because if he can, then I think they do have a lot of chances for success. But if he can't, it's just the same result as every other season.
Sure. Now, are we not giving enough attention to like the absence of Drew Holiday? Because I'm seeing people bringing that up, and, you know, from the point guard position, you just significantly downgraded defensively, like
True.
Big time.
Definitely.
So, I mean, do you have any thoughts on that? Do you worry about this team defensively now with Drew not in there, with Damian in here?
So you'll appreciate this. So Joe Dumars was the nice guy on the Pistons, right?
Mm-hmm.
I vividly remember a story about Joe Dumars where I forget who had the ball, but Joe Dumars was like, you might as well just pass. He goes, you don't want to try and get by me because behind me,
yeah,
I got Lampier and Mahorn just waiting to knock your ass out. Now, there's no knocking your ass out in today's NBA.
Sure.
But there is Giannis and Brook Lopez. Correct me if I'm wrong. They were on the all defensive team last year together.
Yeah. Well, last year but they've been regular all defense teams. I think he's right. Brook has done it like 3 or 4 times now.
Yeah.
And then Giannis.
What a career metamorphosis for that guy.
Right.
For Brook Lopez. I went to games in Brooklyn where he was getting 25 points at halftime from all post up. Yep. Just posting up.
He was the post guy who didn't play defense. Now he's the 3-and-D type big man.
Yeah. Crazy. And efficient solid at his role at a champion level. Like, crazy. So I think and you said this in the video, because he's got other defensive pieces around him, I think that'll help him immensely. Especially, again, going back to coaching, if they can develop some sort of identity. Like, if they get a game plan and an identity, then I don't think Dame will be as what's the word I'm looking for? I don't think you can scout or game plan in, let's attack Dame every single time.
Yeah, you can't exploit him
that's
as
going to
much.
work.
Yeah, 100%. Right. You can't exploit him as much. Yeah, right. I gotta say, I think it's a little overblown. I mean, there's been a lot of. If you look at NBA history, most defensive players of the years are the big man.
Right.
But the way I view that on the defensive end is the defensive player of the year for the center is like the MVP award is for the quarterback in the NFL. Like the reason why they get that so much is because they're clearly the most valuable position on that end of the field / court. Like your rim protector is pivotal. Like if you can't protect the rim, if you can't protect easy layups, now defenses has to collapse more. You got to send help defenders, and now you have guys being abandoned on the perimeter and lots of open shooters. Yeah. And so with guys like Giannis and Brook doing their job down low, I just, again, like Steph Curry, he led the league in steals once. Okay, with like 2.1. Okay, good. He's a risk taker. You know, he'll get a steal out of it. It doesn't mean he's a great on-ball defender. Like getting steals, getting blocks is a different thing than being able to smother
the Iverson conundrum.
Exactly, because Allen Iverson.
Same thing when I was a kid about Allen Iverson.
Allen Iverson was in a conversation with Colin Cowherd one time, and he was talking about Iverson being a good defensive player. Iverson laughed in his face about his own defense. About his own defense.
It's hard to be.
He was like, I'm good in the passing lane. Yeah. So Curry's got 4 rings. He's got 4. Yeah. As a subpar defensive player. I just don't see that as like a deal breaker for this team. I don't see that as like their Achilles heel on why they'll not win. I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I agree. But on the topic of Jrue Holiday, can we shift for a second? Because I have a hot take. I have a hot take about Jrue Holiday and where he went. So Portland definitely made the best possible deal they could make in this situation. Like they could, to your point, they could have sent Dame to Miami and probably gotten a worse deal than what they got. But they didn't. They send him to Milwaukee, which still kind of works for Dame. He's going to be in a position where he'll have a chance to win. And Portland now brings Phoenix into the situation, right? So they end up with Jrue Holiday and DeAndre Ayton and pick swaps in 28 and 30 and a first-round pick from the Bucks in 2029. Which could be anything by that point. If they keep Jrue Holiday, I know that it's been speculated that Jrue Holiday is going to go somewhere else and Portland wants to rebuild. Why? Why are they rebuilding? I don't understand. Why wouldn't you want to get this young lineup and a guy like Chauncey Billups, who's had a career of mostly success? Like, in the beginning he was a journeyman, but mostly success. I can't imagine this team not trying to win. And if you give me Jrue Holiday, DeAndre Ayton, and the rookie Scoot Henderson off the bench, not to mention Anthony Simons, this team is like relatively loaded now. Like, they still have Jeremy Grant. I really like this team. Shadon Sharp too. A lot of young talent that I think if put together properly could be a top 6 team in the West.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's the ceiling for that team?
I really believe that is top 6.
Top 6 in the West?
Yes.
So they should stand pat for top 6 in the West? Like, I don't know. Obviously, it's different.
To be in the lottery.
Well, yeah, I'm like, it's tough for me because I'm like, I'm a Lakers fan who's like, it's do or die championship every year. You know, talking about the Portland Trailblazers. It's like, but as a Portland fan, I got to be wondering, if you give up Damian Lillard and then you keep a guy like Jrue Holiday and don't embrace the rebuild, like, how are you feeling about that? Like, if you're a Blazer fan, let me know.
It's not just Jrue Holiday, though. It's everything. It's all their pieces. Like DeAndre Ayton.
Drew's 33 years old at the moment. I mean,
but you could build it around a guy like, look, when the Suns made the finals, speaking of Milwaukee and Giannis and all that stuff, when the Suns made the finals, everybody and their mother was talking about how DeAndre Ayton is one of the most perfect playoff centers because he doesn't kill you necessarily at the free throw line, and he can stay in front of his man. He can guard a top guy.
All right, well, what's happened since then?
I'm just saying, like, I think the potential is there for something.
Sure.
And something to me is better than nothing. Like, I just don't, unless there's another Wembanyama that I don't know about, because that's what this team needs. They need like another guy of size to pair with Ayton and to put that all together. But with that team, you're looking at a pretty solid defense, like, and you got exciting athleticism and youth coming off your bench. And this is the other thing I want to talk to you about when it comes to Scoot Henderson, because when I bring this up to people, everybody says you can't bench Scoot Henderson. You can't have him be your sixth man. What's wrong with having your rookie be like the most electrifying sixth man in the league? What is wrong with that? I don't understand.
Off the top of my head, contracts are shorter than ever before.
Right.
Now you have to bend over backwards to keep your players happy. I mean, for example, you just look at Kobe Bryant, wasn't starting from Dale Harris, and he freaking hung on to that for the rest of his life.
True.
So, I mean...
But look how that turned out. It turned out all right.
You're not under Dale Harris. Yeah, he was out.
Well, nothing was going to turn out right under Dale Harris anyways. You know this and I know this. They had to make that change.
That's probably true. But, so, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. You're right, but... it's still kind of a middle-of-the-road playoff team at best, and after you've been that at best with Damian Lillard for so long, do you want to keep going down that road, or do you want to just really go all in for the rebuild? Because if you look at the Western Conference, like, there's a lot of teams out there that are going to be serious. You know, with Phoenix, with Denver. You know, the Lakers are probably going to be a lot better because they now at least they have a sense of identity. Like, I don't know, man. You're looking.
Somebody's going to step back, though. Somebody. We never know who it is. It happens every year. Somebody's going to take that step back. Some people are going to take a step up. That's a good one. The Kings will take
I don't know. I'm already on the Kings were a fluke bandwagon.
See, I think I remember I said this. I think the Kings are this era's great regular season team that never does anything in the playoffs. I think they'll be top three.
Hawks in the mid and early 2010s, the Hawks.
I think the Grizzlies have potential to be that team, or I think it's going to be this Kings team. Especially because it's hard to play in Sacramento in terms of like being a road team in the playoffs. It's loud. It's the loudest building on record. Of any arena in the NBA, the Kings. And it happened when the Red Rocket hit a three. What's his name? Kevin Huerter hit a big three, and it was like the loudest recorded thing. I'll put it in. I'll have it on your screen. But, what do you call it? But I think it's going to be either Memphis or the Kings that take a step back for me. So we'll see. We'll see who that is. I think it's more likely to be Memphis just because I don't know what to make of that team right now. But that's neither here nor there. But
do you want to get into power rankings?
In that case, if we want to talk about NBA power rankings, then I guess what I was talking about earlier is kind of relevant. Talking about the Grizzlies and talking about the league, the NBA over the last decade is one giant snow globe. I know I just did. Don't sue me.
Guys,
giant snow globe. It's like a snow globe, right? So it shakes up.
And Russ, what do you do? What do you do with the snow globe, Russ? What do you do?
I was like, you know what, Ernie Johnson, you get out of my face, all right? Get out of here.
I was gonna say,
I will not be Charles
like a churros thing,
drinking soda sack and doing the churros. But no, it's like a snow globe. It goes all over the place, right? And everybody goes in new directions. We got Bradley Beal on the Suns. What do you think about that? Like, I'm sure you've had some thoughts on that already, but like, is the ball big enough?
I'm going to be as honest as possible. It's fun in a sense because when big trades happen, this kind of stuff happens. It immediately just has our brains going wild. We're like, what the heck just happened? And it completely restructures the way you evaluate the league, you know? And so that aspect is exciting today if you're not a Trailblazers or Miami Heat fan, you know? But players are moving teams so often now that it's like, it just kind of is hard to get emotionally attached to guys like you used to. They're not like your favorite players. They're not like your they're not like your childhood heroes anymore. They're all kind of seen as mercenaries. Like,
okay. This is great because I think you and I are just a little bit separated in age. And I think this is the separator because as I said earlier, like when I started watching sports, Terrell Owens was my guy. I could care less about the Eagles, but Terrell Owens was my guy. And I grew up that way. I grew up just idolizing players, especially playing video games. You can put the players wherever you want. So like we're in that. It's so funny because I understand where you're coming from. And it's a take that I've heard before. But for me, it just reminds me of me playing video games and setting you've gotten to know me pretty well.
You want it
you've gotten to know me pretty well. I'm fairly neurotic. I was that type of kid that was like I used to have this thing where I would put one legend on every team, but it would have to be a legend that like kind of fit the rotation. Big loser growing up. This was my life. So like I love the constant shaking of the snow globe and all kinds of different different teams because we get different champions all the time too. I think it creates more parity in the NBA than ever before.
I'm just too old school for that, man.
I understand. I
miss the days where you could really just like, he's our guy. But even now, it's like guys they're just in and out of jerseys all the time. And it gets weird, you know, because at a certain point, like people are asking me, when you make the all-time team, are you going to have LeBron on 2 separate teams? I'm like, how can you not? Like,
true.
You got to have him on the Heat. You got to have him on Cleveland. Like, you really going to make an all-time Heat team and not have LeBron on it? Like,
true. 100%. Absolutely.
I had a friend in Cali, and she was a fan of the Miami Heat and a fan of LeBron James. But she
now it's perfect. Now she's lit.
She always described it as she's not a Heat fan. She's a where he at fan.
I got it. That makes a lot. When I was following Terrell Owens, it was very similar.
But there are so many where he at fans nowadays. It's kind of weird because I was used to like people are like, oh, you know, you're just biased towards LeBron. You're just biased towards Kobe. I was like, neither of those dudes were the NBA when I was first bleeding purple and gold. Like, I was born and we had a dog named Magic. You know, it's just that's what I do. You follow teams, but it's not like that anymore. It's like people follow
It's so
players.
funny. And you know what it is too? Maybe for me personally, I can't speak for the world, obviously, but I am a huge pro wrestling fan. Pro wrestling is very independent and also leans on the entertainment side. And I think that influences me a lot when I talk about who my favorite players are.
That makes sense.
About who's the most entertaining, like, and it's more independent. And also, like, just wrestling culture has infected more and more into sports culture. It just has. And like, especially with like when LeBron went to Miami, it was like him, and this is a wrestling term, maybe people here won't know it, but turning heel, which is like becoming the bad guy. So like that, ever since that happened, it just feels like there's always like a narrative of a villain team in the NBA, and it's very like, it's got that like, you know, pro wrestling kind of feel. And I bring that up to say individuals shine in that world. And I think a lot of that has blended into today's game, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's just my, you know, my influence of it. But
yeah, you had that a little bit in the day, back in the day. Cause like, I remember as a kid, I used to watch NBA on NBC in the 90s and that sort of thing.
Right.
And they would always like start every game. They would have this big montage of what led these teams and these players to this moment. And it was epic. I love stuff like that. They don't really do that in games that much anymore, but that was really cool. But the thing
now it's up to you. It's up to you to do it.
There was bad guys. There was bad guys.
The finals.
Isaiah Thomas was a bad guy to everybody outside of Detroit. He was a bad guy, and he was always a bad guy because he was always on Detroit. And your guy was your guy. So that's the thing. I'm just like, it's just, I don't know. Like, I look at guys like Rajon Rondo, and he won a championship with us, or Dwight Howard, and I'm like, but do they really feel like Lakers? Like, you know,
especially like, Rondo. Rondo's probably weird. Speaking of Rondo, I actually was thinking about this. Getting back on the current day topic, I was thinking if the Suns had a guy like Rondo, not that, you know, Rondo's obviously past his time, but like, they need a guy so badly who's willing to get 0 points a game and just 1 million assists. because if they had a guy like that, I think that Phoenix team could do some serious damage. But the problem is, I just don't think they have anybody to facilitate the offense, which is beyond necessary.
Yeah.
I think it was a problem for KD in Brooklyn, and I think it's going to be a problem for KD and this Phoenix team here, because these guys can all shoot the ball.
It's basically going to be taking turns in isolation plays. You know,
does that work in this? How is that going to be a top 6 seed?
How does
that work?
That's not why I think Milwaukee's now the favorites. You know, that's not what Golden State was when Kevin Durant jumped on board. Sure, KD would have moments, but there was so many instances where you had Klay Thompson and Steph Curry on the perimeter, and Harrison Barnes was wide open. But in the 2016 finals, he was throwing up bricks. Yeah. The very next year, that wide open small forward, now it's KD. You know, and it just meshed. And that's why they immediately dominated. They went 15-1 in the postseason because it just clicked. But like you said, Brooklyn is a perfect example. You bring Harden, you bring KD, and you bring Kyrie, and it's like everybody just take turns doing your own thing. You know, there's no nucleus there. There's no chemistry there.
And also the biggest difference between Brooklyn and Golden State, coaching. Steve Kerr is a wizard. Steve Kerr is a wizard. And if there was anybody who had experience with all these different personalities and having a wild, like, you know, roller coaster of a team in a season, it's Steve Kerr.
Why do you think Steve Kerr's a wizard? Like,
why do I think he's a wizard?
What is there to back that up? That's what I want to know. Because a lot of people would fight you on that.
The way the Warriors' offense runs.
You don't think it was doing that beforehand with Mark Jackson?
Absolutely not. Absolutely
really
not in the same way. Not even a little bit. And the footage proves it.
I think Curry wasn't as good.
No, dude, come on. Draymond was not as big of a factor until Steve Kerr started showing up.
They went 24-1 with Luke Walton,
but they still had the system. They still had that system in place of that constant ball movement. It's a love child between Phil Jackson's triangle and Greg Popovich's swing motion. It is a sensual baby of those two offensive schemes.
I don't know, man.
And I'm telling you, that team is not a dynasty without Steve Kerr. Period. There's no way.
So if everything
you have to tell
played
Andre
out
Iguodala, you're going on the bench, bro.
So you're talking about one of the greatest defensive players of all time, Draymond Green. You're talking about arguably
who doesn't get put in that position.
Arguably, you're talking about the two greatest shooters of all time, Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. And then you throw on a recently former MVP Kevin Durant. You're telling me they're still not winning several championships?
Not without the right system, and it's proven throughout history. Come on, man. You're telling me Kobe and Shaq are winning multiple championships without the triangle? I think that's a big deal.
That's not what
it matters.
That's not what I think said. It matters. Okay, Steve Kerr is not Phil Jackson, but Steph Curry's the ultimate floor spacer. You're trying to tell me
Mark Jackson was not having Steph shoot 10+ threes a game, and Steve Kerr came in and said, "I am letting you." The offense is going to be predicated around ball
Mark would have figured that out.
Getting these shots.
Mark would have figured that out. The league was already
had a job since.
So here's what happened. The league, everybody wants to give Steph all the credit for the fact that three-point shooters, the three-point shooting took off. He expedited it. He didn't start it. He expedited it because the league was going like this already on the ascension of three-pointers. You were talking about like in the 80s, teams were shooting like 5 a game. In the 90s, they're shooting like 15 a game. In the 2000s, they're shooting like 20 a game. When Steph came in, it went like this and then just went like this. So
around 2014, it went.
Right. It just spiked. Yeah. But it was kind of already heading in that direction already. Because before Steph came in, you had guys like John Hollinger and Tom Habistro and all these nerdy analytic guys who were saying, you need to be shooting more three-pointers.
Yes.
What was convenient is right as they started preaching that the long two is inefficient, shoot more three-pointers, Steph Curry steps in. So it was it was the perfect timing, but the league was kind of already going there, and there's no way Mark Jackson would have survived if he didn't embrace it to a certain extent.
I just don't think when you say, so to your point, sure, to a certain extent, they don't become a dynasty that way. They gotta go, Even Steve Nash says it. Like, and who was a part, as assistant as part of the Warriors. But he says about the Suns situation when he was in 05, 06, 7 seconds or less. He always says we should have shot more. We should have gone
100%.
harder. We were
100%.
all afraid. The whole team.
It wasn't just the NBA. It was like basketball as a whole changed how they view it. Because I remember as a kid in junior high as a center, they started me as center and I shot one damn jumper in practice. And my coach scolded me. Like he scolded me. He said, "You are down there to get rebounds." I'm like, I had never played center before in my life. And he's like, "You are not shooting. You are not shooting jumpers anymore. You get down in the paint." It's like it was a complete like culture. Sure. But I agree. They should have shot more. But again, I'll give you the example of Greg Popovich. Greg Popovich hates this 3-point era. He hates it, and he says all the time that the team who wins is the better 3-point shooting team. Like statistically, that's usually how it goes. The team who wins the most. Now, even though he hates it, his teams in recent history are shooting a lot of 3-pointers. Why? Because he knows he has to. He has to. And so that's the example I'm giving with Mark Jackson. Is like he would have had to adapt if he wanted to keep a job. Obviously, he didn't keep a job regardless. But
but even if so, let's see. I'm looking at last season's stats just for giggles. The Spurs, where are they? The Spurs were 22nd. They made 11 last year per game in threes for a percentage of 32%, and they shot 32.
I think that has more to do with the fact that they just don't have shooters now, though.
But that's kind of what I'm saying is Steve Kerr has a hand with Bob Myers. Well, not Bob Myers anymore, but with Bob Myers at the time for building the roster and putting it together. And I think Steve Kerr has made repeated rotation changes that made a big deal, that made a huge difference. And I think not just the offensive system, but what their commitment is defensively matters. And I think that is because of a strong head coach with a lot of experience that everybody respects.
So when he's failing miserably with Team USA, does that deter you at all?
It's that. So to me personally, the rules are a little different. Those guys, okay, like Damian Lillard, for example, was getting his kicked in FIBA. I was shocked. Couldn't believe that. Mm-hmm. Now, it took him a minute took the team as a whole, Team USA, to like kind of get their crap together. Sure. And then they, ended up winning that Olympics. But I think that has to do with the difference in the rules. And I think his system probably is a little bit better suited for the NBA. Whereas, when it comes to FIBA, you can rough the guys up a little more. You can do a little bit, it's a little bit a different kind of game. It's a little bit just the ever so slight changes to the rules, I think, make a difference. But hey, he's still getting there.
I'll just say, I'm just not sold on Kerr. I think he gets the credit. Wow. I think he gets the credit for the Steph Curry effect. I think Steph Curry makes that offense click to me. And this is the way I view Doc Rivers. Because for a while, Doc Rivers...
See, they're two different people for me.
Hold on. It is a little different. But Doc Rivers was seen as this great defensive head coach.
True.
And I was like, no. That's when you have Kevin Garnett leading the defense.
100% agree.
Yeah, exactly. Kevin Garnett was the defensive leader of that team, and Doc Rivers took some credit for it. And after he didn't do anything after that, people are like, maybe we need to rethink about how good this Doc Rivers guy actually is.
Not only that, not just the defensive leader, the vocal leader. Doc Rivers is not the vocal leader of a team. If he was, the Clippers would have been more successful by now. But no. Or you know what I mean? Like they would have had their chance with me.
I'm trying to tell you.
But I think Steve Kerr is not like that. I wouldn't put them in the same category at all. Steve Kerr has almost gotten into fist fights with Draymond Green. Like, what are we talking about right now? Steve Kerr will go at his players.
Okay.
Doc Rivers is like a pushover in comparison.
Okay, and Meta World Peace elbow James Harden in the head. Is he a great head coach?
What are you talking about?
What are you going for? Because he's willing to fight Michael Jordan? He's a great head coach because he's willing to go at Draymond Green?
He's fearless. He's fearless, and he's not afraid of some of these players, these superstar players. He is making sure it's the same thing that Pop does.
I feel like I'm watching the basketball version of Moneyball right now, where all the guys are like, "Oh, he's got the big arm. He's just, we need a guy with legs."
I'm telling you, man. There's something to that guy. Call me crazy, but I really like Steve Kerr.
All right, we can't just have this be a Steve Kerr podcast. We gotta.
Yeah, but what do you call it? You started it. but let's see. What do you think about the Celtics getting Porzingis? We haven't really looked at that, and we haven't really looked at anybody in the East, frankly.
Yeah.
But
what has Porzingis been doing lately? I mean, I feel like the dude.
Washington he was kind of like at least 20 points a game, solid. Like, from a gambling perspective on my part, he was always very consistent. Good for 20 points, good for 2 threes every game. Why
has everybody turned him into a thing of the past? Like, why did we stop talking about, I think the hype was too much. I think the hype was too much in New York.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things where people expect so much that when he doesn't end up living up to that, people act like he's some sort of a bust or something, but he's not. Kind of the same thing happened with Grant Hill. Remember when he was just like, this guy's going to be the next MJ. So it was hard to really appreciate when he was with Phoenix and he was a real good role player. I feel like that's what's kind of happened with him. But yeah, I mean, he's still freaking, I don't know, dude.
But that's the thing. But what do those two have in common? Injuries, right? Yep. They get hurt and then they fizzle out. The thing about Kristaps is, if you look at his stat sheet, if you just close your eyes and just look at the stat sheet, from a statistical standpoint, he has been basically since 2017 has been consistently 20 points a game, 100%. Making 1.5 to 2 threes, and playing somewhere around 50. Last year, he played 65 games. That's the most he's played since 2017. So that's the other thing. He just hasn't played that much.
Yep.
But Dallas, for whatever reason, it just wasn't a good fit. You would have thought him and Luka would have made something out of that. But I think Boston might be a good spot for him because they can go full 5 out, right? And it'll really talk about 2K. It'll really look like a 2K battle in that case.
Sure.
I just think I think they have a chance to get a lot of regular season wins. But from a playoff standpoint, winning the championship, I don't know. Unless they're going to change what they do when it comes to playing guys like Giannis and Embiid in terms of rotation, it seems kind of hard. But
now, before we started recording this, you seem to be surprised that I had Milwaukee as such strong favorites from the East.
Right?
Are you a Boston guy? Is that where you're at?
So historically, let's see if I can get this up somewhere. So I've had these for a long time.
So you're just revealing your bias now, is what you're saying?
No. But what do you call it? I just figured actually, you know what? Yeah, screw it. Yeah, I am. For the purposes of for being unbiased, I'm gonna let you know that I have Celtics flags hanging in my thing.
I mean, I got Lakers. My entire room's purple. Yeah. It's not like I can necessarily slander the Celtics and not look biased. So
I've gone to the Boston Garden for a few playoff games at this point in my life, but I will say that I don't think the Celtics could beat the Bucks as currently constructed in a playoff series right now. But this is the way early prediction. I also think Philly with Nick Nurse is kind of interesting, depending on what James Harden does. If James Harden decides he wants to play basketball or not.
I don't care about Philly. I've stopped. I stopped caring about Philly. I can't. James Harden, Joel Embiid, they don't have it. And until I see otherwise, I don't care. I just
okay.
You don't
think Embiid is any good?
No. I don't mean it as he's good. I'm talking about in the postseason when it all matters. Sure, both of those guys historically. I don't give me any explanation you want that it's nerves, that
I don't. So I would say for James Harden, you could say whatever you want. In terms of Joel, he just can't fucking stay healthy, and it drives me crazy. Like, he's another one of my favorite players in the league. I love everything he can do from a skill set standpoint, but the guy, and I don't know whether it's because he's a tad too heavy or just bad luck, but he when it comes to playoffs, literally every time he's playing through some sort of more nagging injury than other players, because obviously a lot of guys play hurt in the postseason, but
because when the guys are dropping like 5 ticks, in field goal percentage, and they're scoring like 7 or 8 less points in the postseason than they are in the regular season, you can add whatever decent pieces of role players. Your superstars got to play like superstars when the games matter, man.
That's what had me worried about this guy for a while.
Time. That's what I'm saying. And at this point, like, there's only so many times I could say, I think this is the year for Harden. I think this is the year for Embiid, before you're like, I'm not putting my neck out there for these guys anymore.
But I do think
is who they are.
I do think it's put up or shut up this season for them, because Nick Nurse has shown that he can come in with a different kind of roster and build. I just like coaching matters to me. I feel like if there's one thing we've gotten through in this podcast, it's that coaching matters to me greatly. And I think with the right head coach, players and teams that might not have been relevant before can be put in relevant situations. But having said all that, I do think, looking at it, that Milwaukee probably has the most depth. But I guess I was just surprised, because it's like, the East is different than it used to be. I think the East is not so diluted. Like, I think the East is way better than it was a few years ago.
100%. So I've had a lot of people asking me in the comments recently, and it's a good question. It's a great question. If we consider this team a super team, which I don't know if you consider it a super team, if this is a super team between Damian Lillard, Giannis, I mean, you got 2 30 points per game scorers there, and then a pretty dang good third option in Chris Middleton. If that's a super team, why is everybody so excited about Milwaukee building a super team? We're happy for Damian Lillard. We're happy for Giannis, but we killed Kevin Durant for it, and we killed LeBron for it. Is there bias there? Do we just hate those players? Because I see people asking those questions a lot. It's like, a lot of people are celebrating this or saying they're excited about this, and we act like the league was destroyed when these other guys do it. So what are your thoughts on that?
So I have 2 thoughts. Number one, I think that LeBron and Kevin Durant were killed for their decisions, especially LeBron, because, first of all, from a media standpoint, it was a villainized move. Like, they told you what was happening with LeBron, and then they would immediately cut to people burning his jersey in the street and painting the picture. So I think the media has a lot to do with it. That's number one. Number two, I would compare this to more of a Russell Westbrook situation than a LeBron, Kevin Durant, and what they did situation. Russell Westbrook, when he left Oklahoma City, they had exhausted all their options. They had gone through multiple iterations, from Russ and KD to Russ and Paul George, and even Russ by himself, Mr. Triple-Double. And they had done everything they could do, and it was time for Russ to move on. He had given his, 10 plus years? Same kind of deal, right? 10 years?
Yeah.
So I do think there's something to be said for exhausting all of the options, and it's not up to him where he goes in this situation. Like, does he have places he was leaning? Yeah, but clearly, as we know, it was Miami. I think it would have been a more, as you eloquently put a few days ago or last week, I think it would be a more devastating thing for the league if it had been Miami. I think there would be more people in uproar.
Yeah, 100%.
But because, and this has always been this way too, because it was an organizational move over a player making the decision, I do think it's looked at very differently.
Sure.
For better or worse.
I feel like Lillard would have had everybody would have given him the right to pick his destination and everybody be okay with it if he hadn't signed that Supermax extension. Because he signed that Supermax extension, took that extra money, and then said, trade me with this massive contract after I just committed to play for you for 5 seasons. Yeah. And I want to go to this place specifically. Right. He alienated people with that because the Supermax contract, when it was created, I think it was 2017 to 2018. When that was created, that's what it was meant to stop. Right. Was these super 100%. Teams. Was players just controlling things, or just small market teams not being able to retain their superstar. So for him to do that, take that money, take that Supermax contract, and then immediately say, send me to Miami, I will demand a trade from anywhere else. Yeah. He lost a lot of people's favor with that. Now, with that being said, I agree. I think it's going to be the best thing for him in the long run, not only because I think he's a better fit in Milwaukee, but because he didn't get exactly what he wanted, he won't be crucified like he would have been and made a villain if he went to Miami. And now it kind of just looks like he gave, like, what, how many years to Portland? He gave a 11, decade, a decade plus to Portland. Right. And now he's playing for a contender finally, you know? Yep. And that's the view on it. Yeah. Now, the thing is, I'll get to the LeBron thing. I think the LeBron thing was, one, a lot of people just don't like LeBron. Like, it is what it is. I thought about making a video on all the reasons.
if we're talking about that moment in time, 2010, 2011, that guy was the biggest good guy. No. Right before he went, he was the biggest, wrestling term, baby face is the wrestling term for ultimate superhero good guy. He was the biggest baby face in the NBA when he was killing Detroit and getting to the finals by himself. All of the above. People were loving him. And then when he shifted the balance of power, people took that very personally.
I don't know why,
but they did.
I think the reason is that was new. Not that we hadn't seen a super team, but to see 3 players who were considered top 5 players in their conference, all in their 20s, sign in the same location at the same time. That was new. That was like, okay, how easy does it have to be for you now?
That's what it was.
Because at the time, most of us thought he was going to the Knicks. Remember, he was showing up to the baseball games wearing like the Yankees jerseys and all that sort of thing. The Yankees cap. And he was saying that Madison Square Garden is his favorite place to play basketball. I was one of the people that was convinced he's going to be a New York Knick. The Chicago Bulls were a dark horse. This Miami Heat super team, we didn't even learn this was really possible until it was basically happening. You know,
dude, the moment Bosh and Wade went on ESPN, the moment they went on ESPN and they got asked, oh, where do you think LeBron's gonna go? And both of them couldn't keep a straight face. I literally turned to, I was sitting next to my friend from high school, and I said, holy shit, he's going to Miami. I was like, he's going. There's no way he's not. Dwayne Wade and him are like best of friends. I was like, this greatly changed, like, because they were talking about, oh, our contracts we're gonna work them out. And like, I was like, holy shit, they're gonna do this.
But the kicker,
this is gonna be insane.
The kicker was the decision. The televised event, the decision.
Terrible move.
We haven't seen that. Now, he did it for charity, so I'm not going to say it was all terrible. But from a PR standpoint of trying to not look like a villain, to completely bring attention to yourself and destroy emotionally the Cleveland fan base, like, that was heartbreaking. Like, just heartbreaking for him to just be like, I'm taking my talents to South Beach.
He's leaving home. Because it's not like they were like, oh, well, we've given you a lot of good years here in Cleveland. They were like, you live here. This is where you grew up. This is your hometown. You're turning your back on your family, you piece of garbage.
It was like, I don't know if you've seen Game of Thrones, but it was like, there's an episode called The Wet Red Wedding where a bunch of lovable characters and all that sort of things, they're just all whacked at the same time.
Yeah,
and there's
the pregnant girl gets murdered.
And it's it's so shocking, it's so jarring that like it takes a moment for you to even like emotionally handle what just happened. You're just in shock because it was such a spectacle and so sudden. That's what the decision was. That was basically the basketball equivalent. Is like it could have been gradual. It could have had like some sort of tweet and somebody said like, hey, just so you know, LeBron's thinking about joining Miami. He's like, no, I'd like to let everybody know with tons of people watching with the camera on me. I'm going to I think it really just rubbed people the wrong way. On top of the fact,
imagine if he was just looking at the 20s. If he was just looking at the I think it was Jim Gray that was interviewing him. He's just looking at Jim Gray, and then out of nowhere he goes right to the camera and goes, "I'm leaving."
Yeah.
Imagine that.
I could just only imagine being a Cleveland fan, dude. That like, because I remember the offseason with Kobe demanding a trade, and I thought any second he's going to go to Chicago.
Yeah.
If Kobe freaking did that to me, where he freaking did a TV special, had me watching that thing with my Lakers gear on. Wait, what's Kobe gonna do? What's Kobe gonna do? And then he's like, I'm picking my talents to. I'm like, damn it, Kobe!
I'm going to live in Jordan's shadow.
Yeah. Oh my God, I hate it. I would have hated that. And so, just that moment, it just rubbed people the wrong way. Kevin Durant. To me, the Kevin Durant thing was way more egregious. It's like,
this is funny because I had 2 questions for you, and that was one of them.
Kevin Durant's way more egregious. The LeBron thing is just kind of funny, and the delivery was bad. To me, the Kevin Durant, it almost feels like fundamentally there's like something wrong with you as a competitor to go out.
I agree. I agree.
To not just joining a 73-9 team and coasting on Steph Curry's team to win a championship is the team that just beat you and that you just choked to when you had a 3-1 lead.
That part of it, and Durant's body language during the end of that series makes it rough. Like
they're one Draymond Green. They're probably one Draymond Green suspension away from winning the championship and being considered the greatest basketball team in history. True. And they just beat you, and you had a chance to beat them, and then you join them. It's like, even me, as just some regular dude, I lose like a game of checkers, and I'm like, let's play again because I want to beat you. And he's like, nah, let me join your team.
You know what though is worse than all that? For a while, I don't know if this is still the case for him. Maybe we'll find out when he retires, because, you know, people like to talk when they retire. And he has a podcast. It's not very good, but he has a podcast. He thinks like he doesn't understand why people discredit his finals MVPs. Like, he has a hard time he's like, I beat LeBron head to head in the finals. Like, I've heard him say that more than once. I just don't understand how he doesn't see the difference between that and what LeBron did in 2016 in Cleveland.
Yeah, because people believe
like what Kawhi did in 2019.
Yeah, no,
I don't know. He
wants to build a thought process that supports, you know, his success, you know? And so of course he's going to feel that way. But you're trying to tell me that if Kawhi Leonard joined the Warriors during the height of his powers, that they're not dominating in a similar fashion? You're trying to tell me that LeBron James joining, like, they're not dominating a similar fashion? Kevin Durant's, like I said, I bring this up time and time again in the videos, but you could see it. I remember watching the first regular season game of the 2016 to 2017 Warriors, and I couldn't believe how many times either Klay, Steph, or Kevin Durant were wide open, because there's only so much attention you can give to these guys, and especially when the offense is moving so fast. His field goal percentages shot up, and that was part of the recruitment pitch from Jerry West. He said, imagine how many open shots you're going to have.
Don't even get me started with Jerry West. Jerry West is he's the most influential man in all of basketball's history.
Pretty much, yeah.
By a lot. Like, it's not very arguable. He has touched every decade of basketball since the 60s, from a player to a coach for a little bit, to an executive. And has influenced. He's the reason Klay Thompson stayed on the Warriors.
Yeah.
Like, he's the reason Kobe and Shaq came together. Sure. He was the reason, like, you know, he was in Memphis for a little bit making moves and doing, like, they're
not to mention he won a championship. Yeah, not to mention he won a championship and got, you know, Wilt Chamberlain another ring and all that sort of thing. I mean, that's just an afterthought.
Yeah, and his what some people believe is the standard or the archetype for that position at 2 guard. Like the 27, 5 and 5 guy. Jerry West was the first one to really put that in, you know, do that. What would you compare this Damian Lillard situation to in history in terms of a trade? Like, or in terms of what we're talking about with LeBron and KD? Would you say it's more that, or would you say it's more the Westbrook thing? Because I think it's way more of a Westbrook type deal.
Man, I don't even think it's either. I think it's a Kevin Garnett thing.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, well, think about it. I mean, Kevin Garnett gave everything to the Minnesota Timberwolves, and he was with them for 100%. A long time. The best supporting players that they got. I mean, really, his best teammate consistently was Wally Szczerbiak. I mean, he had Stephon Marbury.
What about the coach choker?
He had Latrell Sprewell for a little bit. Coach chokers. Better player.
I don't know who Latrell Sprewell is, but I know who the coach choker is.
He was good for the Knicks back in the 90s anyway. So Latrell Sprewell was there. Sam Cassell was there for a little bit. His best consistent teammate was Wally Szczerbiak. And again, they pushed the Lakers. I can't remember which year it was, but while the Lakers were in the middle of dominating the Western Conference, they had a good series with Minnesota, with their best players being Wally Szczerbiak and Kevin Garnett. So he gave them their best efforts. And so finally, they're like, all right, we got to trade him. Got to embrace a rebuild. Let's go ahead and send him to a contender as a thank you for everything that he's done for us. You know,
started my love for basketball, frankly.
And nobody hated KG for it. Yeah. Because, you know, yes, he was joining Ray Allen. Yes, he was joining Paul Pierce. But first of all, he was traded, so it wasn't necessarily completely in his control. But also, it felt like he kind of earned that because he gave so much time to a small market franchise, which technically is the worst franchise in NBA history because they literally have the worst win-loss ratio ever, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Yeah. So that's how I kind of how I see this Damian Lillard thing. Like, yes, most people might acknowledge this Milwaukee Bucks team as a super team. Yeah. But the difference is, I think most people are going to feel like these two stars earned this. Because, for one, Giannis already won a championship before this, with Chris Middleton being his best supporting player. And people were saying, look at how he did it by being loyal. Look at how he did it without building a super team. But everybody else
not only did people say it, he freaking said it.
He said it, yeah.
He said it.
But even with that, other people are building super teams around him. So now finally he gets a player alongside of him. It's hard to knock him. He's proven himself before it. It's kind of like Steph Curry getting Kevin Durant. We don't hate on Steph Curry for Kevin Durant joining. We hate on Kevin Durant for leaning on Steph Curry. You know, and I think, you know, that kind of works in the favor of Giannis. Now with Damian, again, he didn't get the exact destination he wanted. He just finally has an opportunity to be on a title contender as he's approaching his mid-30s. Right. You know? So I just don't see it in any way, shape, or form as a similar situation to LeBron and Kevin Durant. And I hate to say it, but like, honestly, super teams are bothering me less and less. And the reason why is because it's just kind of the state of the league now, man. Like, if you're not doing it, like, it's going to be that much harder for you to compete. You know, and the other thing is, like, it's not even entirely the player's fault because the max contract you can have is 5 years now. Like, the CBA's got it so far, and you have an option like 2 years in. Of course, guys are constantly looking around to see if the grass is greener. Like, Jordan couldn't do that when he was signed for like 8 years. Kobe couldn't do it when he was signed for 7. Magic Johnson definitely couldn't do it when he signed for 25 years. Like, they didn't have that option. Now players do. So
genius contract, by the way. That's a contract. That shit. Oh my God. I think about that all the time because we were looking during
25 years. 25
he still got
years,
paid
$25
when
million.
Kobe was winning the 2 chips with Pau Gasol. Magic Johnson was still on the payroll for $1 million.
He was still under contract. Yep.
Unbelievable. Makes you think, why didn't he play that year with Kobe and Shaq? I think about that all the time. But
just a Udonis,
he was getting paid anyways.
A Udonis Haslem role. Seriously.
He was getting paid anyways. Magic, Kobe, Shaq, 96. That would have been so fun. Just one. I would have been happy with that. But fuck, I got so sidetracked thinking.
You don't think they would have killed Magic for that though?
No, absolutely not.
Come on,
I would not have killed Magic for it. I brought it up on the podcast, on my podcast, when we were doing Shaq's legacy breakdown, talking about when he went to the Lakers. Magic had been flirting with it when he was in the Olympics, when he was doing TV for the Olympics. Magic was flirting with it. He was like, oh, I think being with this Shaq and Kobe, lobs for days. I tell you, Magic would have averaged double-digit assists, even though he could only play from the post at that point. Like, I don't care. Oh man, the best power forward, the most unique power forward ever to that point would have been Magic Johnson in '96 with those two beasts. Even though Kobe was young, doesn't matter. I still think it would have been. And think about how happy and jovial Magic is and how good he was from, like, you know, how, like, yeah, he wanted to be traded and he had his moments, but for the most part, he was a good teammate. He got good team chemistry. Man, he might have been the thing that kept Shaq and Kobe together, but this is neither here nor there. Talk about hypothetical. But I bring it back full circle. I think that we are in for a really good season. I would say that. I would say we're in for a totally unique season. I think there's going to be lots of teams that, like I said earlier, lots of teams that rise, lots of teams that fall, and a lot of stuff we don't see coming. And that's
one of the most fascinating things, one of the most fascinating aspects about that whole team is, of the contending teams, which team is getting talked about the least? The Nuggets, dude.
We have a special guest. We have a special guest now.
When it comes to this Nuggets, I've never seen a team be so hardly celebrated in an NBA offseason. Like, we're not talking about them at all. And so that's the most fascinating part to me, is that we've got all these guys all these teams competing, and the one that's the defending champion is not being talked about. Because we talked about the Suns, we talked about, you know, Bucks, Celtics, and Porzingis. Like, there's a lot of exciting stuff going on. It's like the team that has a chance to repeat, nobody wants to talk about. All right, we'll see what happens. See what happens. I hope Jokic is motivated, but he's probably just hanging out with his horses.
That's what I was about to say. We're not hearing about him because he's in freaking Serbia chilling and he doesn't want to be heard about.
He didn't even want to be at the parade.
Dude, that was hysterical when he was like, "There's a parade." No, like, he's so bummed. He's like, I won't be able to ride my horse for over a week now. but no, and they're bringing back basically everybody, right?
Yeah, basically. Yeah. It's
so
gonna be the whole
it's gonna be a really exciting year. It's gonna be a really exciting NBA season. And frankly, we have a month to go. Who knows what could happen in a month?
Yeah. I'm excited to see where Drew. I just saw an update that Drew's maybe looking at the Clippers and stuff. I don't know. I'll take the Clippers back.
Oh my
God.
God.
Other LA team. Anyway, but no, dude, this was fun. This was fun. I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, brother.
We're going to be doing this more often, and we like to do more live streams too, so we can get more engagement from the audience and that sort of thing and stuff. But anyway, Russell's the reason we're now getting daily videos. So thank this man right here. It's been wonderful to have him helping out the channel. Thanks, man. Thanks for all that you're doing. This is fun,
Thank you, and thank all of you for watching. Appreciate it, man. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you guys very soon.
Peace, y'all.